And welcome. My name is Yehoshua Sova, Rabbi of Merchant One Minyan in sunny South Florida, Miami Beach. And we are now tuned in to One Radio, your kosher radio station here in Florida. I invite you to join me for deep, inspiring, and uplifting Torah content. You can listen to us at our website at www.kosherradio1.com or watch us live on our Facebook page, One Radio. Later, you'll also find this lecture on our channels on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. A heartfelt thank you to our dedicated, awesome team, Mazi Abajal, the Web 770 team for managing the website and app, Jonathan and Lucas from Media. Forbes Channel, our broadcast engineer, Shahal Nagar, DJ Shak FX, our music editor and studio owner, Yaniv Morozovsky, for consulting and supporting the station, and of course, Asher Vaknin, our sound engineer. We'd like to thank DJ Shak for helping to support this specific class, as well as my dear friend, Yechiel Esformis, a dear friend not only of my family, but also my grandfather was great business partners, and we're dedicating today's shir with Yechiel's father, Rabbi Mori Esformis, or Moshe Yitzchak ben Rabbi Yechiel, a legendary, unbelievable person. And I just want to take a break before I share with you the Torah content with a line that struck me so powerfully about who Rabbi Mori Esformis was. If you go throughout Chicago, or you go to Anchorage, Alaska, or you go to different places in Eretz Yisrael, you see Rabbi Morris Esformis all over. It's beautiful. Somebody said, how is it that this person, Mori Esformis, was able to support so many institutions? The answer was, he was colorblind. He did not see color. He just saw people who needed help, institutions that needed an extra boost, and he was there for them. And I'm very honored that I'm able to learn with Yechiel every single day. We've been doing this for years, and it's such an inspiration that we are able to learn every single day. Lila Nishmas' dad. His dad was a monumental, unbelievable mover and shaker in Chicago, and somebody that really was a tremendous Baal Chesed and Baal Tzedakah. So we're dedicating today's shir, Lila Nishmas' father, whose yahrzeit was a few days ago, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Yechiel. He should have a lichtig Gan Eden, a beautiful Gan Eden, and thank the Esformis family. Shout out to my boys, to Mo, to Morris, and to Jack up in California. You should stay safe. And Serena, you're unbelievable how you take care of your dad. Mazel tov to you, Jack, and your Kala, and your upcoming, and your marriage. We're very proud of you. You just got married, and you should build a bayis of Yisrael. And Serena, you have cute kids, and you and your husband should continue uplifting the family. And Jack, we're waiting for you to, God willing, be a chassan very soon. Let's jump right in. The Zera Shimshon tells us the following unbelievable, awesome question, which is, Yaakov Avinu, before he passes on, he tells his son, Yosef, I need you. Out of everyone, from my entire family, you are going to be the responsible one that's going to get me out of here and make sure that I can be buried in the Holy Land. Now, the reason why this is a monumental task is because Egypt at that time had a rule that when you were in Egypt, you could not leave. It was worse than what we would call the Hermit Kingdom nowadays, worse than what we would call for North Korea. When you were in Egypt, you were stuck there for good. And Yaakov, he had more of a compounded problem. Why? Because since he gave the blessing to Paro, that every time Paro would step into the Nile River, it would bring the river up. So literally Paro controlled the amount of vegetation and amount of parnasa going into Egypt based on his whims and his desires, and everyone knew that. He basically was, if you will, the Fed chairman that if he decided he was in a certain mood, he could either take up or take down the economy just based on what he had for breakfast that morning. And that was Paro. Incidentally, you should just know, the Nile River is the longest river on planet Earth, which does something very unique that no other river does. There's a few rivers. There's one in, I believe, in Jacksonville. There's one in Oregon. There's another one in Russia. That every river in the world goes from up north and goes down south. There's only a few rivers on planet Earth that go from the south going up north, and the Nile is one of them. And I want to say that was my own interpretation of that is the bracha that Yaakov gave to Paro. Be that as it may, since Paro got this blessing from Yaakov, that he is now assured that he's basically like a god, because wealth has to do with power, prestige, and everything else. Therefore, Paro understood that it came from Yaakov. He wanted to give accolades to Yaakov and say, it's because of you I am where I am today. And therefore, we're going to make a monument from you, and we're going to make you a very big, prestigious position in Egyptian lore. And you're going to be a legend here in Egypt. And you have to understand, Egypt was the economy for the entire world. And once we understand that, Yaakov knew that he was fighting an uphill battle. For him to literally leave from Egypt to go up to the Holy Land was not going to be a physical uphill battle, but a spiritual and emotional one too. Because he knew that once he would get buried in Egypt, it would be very difficult for him to be extracted. And he did not want to be there during the time of the Exodus. Rashi brings down a few reasons why as well. But the simple meaning is he knew he cannot stay there. It is not good for him to be there. So he pulls Yosef to the side and says, I need you to get me out. And then says the Zera Shimshon the following. Now that I see your face, I'm asking you, I'll not tikpareni b'Mitzrayim. Please do not allow me to be buried in Egypt. Ask the Zera Shimshon from the Zera Berach and the Shach, he brings from others as well. Why is it that he needs to specifically see his face? And now I want to let you know, I want to be married out of Egypt. What does one thing have to do with the other? You could send a telegram. You're learning with Yosef's son, Ephraim, every single day. Or you could call Yosef, or just by proxy, you could tell him a message. Please promise me. Why is it necessary for him to see his son? And now that he sees his son, now I want you to be guaranteed that I will basically have this ability to leave out of Egypt. Says the Zera Shimshon an unbelievable lesson, and this is a lesson that's for us. He says the following. Egypt at that time, because it was the powerhouse of the world, it had so much immorality that was baked into the essence of what Egypt was, that Yaakov was very nervous that his son, who's the viceroy, he could at any woman desire, and he chose not to do that. Yaakov understood that someone who has such continuous pressure, maybe over time he will succumb. As is very famously aptly put, absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you have such limitless power that you could do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, and nothing or no one can stop you, you start to lose yourself and you start to lose who you are, where you're going, what you could do. And unfortunately, many people succumb to abusing other people. Just look at people who started off as very poor and then they struck it rich, and they kind of forget about their humble past, their humble beginnings. And Yaakov was very nervous that his son Yosef would succumb to that as well. So, of course, every now and then he would meet with him. But says the Zera Shimshon, he was worried that over time, as he's now approaching his death, Yosef may succumb to that because he won't have his father overlooking him. So he calls him in and says the following. Listen, I need to look at your face one more time. Why? Because says the Zera Shimshon, Chachmas Nashim Tar Panav, that the wisdom of a person lights up his face. When you see great wise men and how their face radiates a shine, a holiness, something that's like ethereal, something that's so beautiful, it's not part of this world, you have to realize because they're connected to a higher source. When you realize that by just looking at the person, Yaakov says, when I look at you, I know I got a deal. When I look at you, I know I could ask you, get me out of Egypt. This is not a place where I could belong. Says the Zera Shimshon, Yosef may counter and tell Yaakov the exact opposite. We need you here. We need you to be here in Egypt. Why? You're the anchor of our family. You will be that link, that actual chain that we're going to remind ourselves what a holy, righteous person was, what he looked like, and it's actual palpable. You could touch the grave. You could touch the gravesite and go there and say, this is where our grandfather, this is where our father, this is where someone who's a holy tzaddik, someone that we could look up to, part of the Merkava, part of Hashem's own chariot. He was here. He lived amongst us. He was a giant amongst us, and legacies don't die. And if you are here and you're able to touch that, it's palpable, it's real, that will be the connection that we will not succumb and we will not do things that are going to eventually harm us spiritually. So Yaakov was worried that his son Yosef would make counter and tell him, please, Dad, don't leave. You can't leave because we actually need you here. If you go to the Holy Land, who's going to be there? The Jewish people are growing up here in Egypt. We're not going to be able to get out. And who's going to anchor us? So Yaakov actually thought that. And he said, wait 1 second. My son might be right. But you know who could take that mantle of leadership? It's you, Yosef. Now, Yosef would have been like, whoa. Dad, I'm not you. I'm just your son. And that's exactly what Yaakov wanted to do. I'm giving over the mantle of leadership to you. You are going to be the next link in the chain. You are going to be the future. And you're going to be the next chain of the legacy. And legacies don't die because it continues on with people like you. When a person understands that every Jew has this mandate, that you come from a glorious past, remember, you're the present with a link to the future. Once a person understands that, they'll understand they have a monumental responsibility of what it is they need to do, and hopefully they're going to rise to that occasion. And Yaakov wanted to give that to his son, and he had to make sure that you and I are seeing eye to eye. We can look at each other. I see the wisdom in your face. I see your face light up. Now I know you're going to be the next chain in the link. And that's why he specifically says to Zerah Shimshon, he wanted him to be present and look at him in the face and have that man-to-man talk and tell him, you are the next chain, the next link in the chain, and therefore I'm counting on you. And do me a favor, please don't bury me in Egypt. You know why? It's not on me anymore. It's on you. They say that when Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, when he was at the 9th Fort in Kovna, and all his Talmidim were gathered there, and the reason why they know that this story is to be true is because someone who actually got shot feigned death, and they pretended like they were dead, and the Nazis moved people to make sure no one was doing that. This person did a fantastic job of pretending as if they died, when in truth, in reality, they did not. And this person made it out of Germany. And to make a long story short, this person eventually made it to America. And this person said that they were there when Rabbi Chanan gave his final address to the people. And this is what he said. He says, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Kiddush Hashem that before you get taken out to be killed because you're a Jew, that's your only sin. You have to know that you have a tremendous responsibility. And he says, we are karbanos. We are now being the sacrificial lambs on behalf of other world Jewry around the world. We don't know why Hashem is doing this to us. But one thing we can control, and that is what's in our mind. Just remember, you are the next link, the next chain that is actually going to provide the Jews into the next generation, the Jews wherever they may be. They're going to be the ones that are ultimately going to be the next chain, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to pivot and carry over the next future generations of Jews. Even though we don't know who they are, where they are, or what they're going to be, but we are going to be their sacrifice. And don't lose sight of that. Remember, as you're about to be killed, you're being killed only to be, you're being a Jew, and that's it, that's your crime. And it's to basically carry the baton over to those people. A person recognizes that who they are, they're going to respond so much more powerfully of who they are, what they can be, and not only that, what they could be, the change for other people as well. They say that Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, who unfortunately, towards the end of his life, he suffered from a horrific case of Parkinson's, and it was so bad. And the doctors told him, listen, Rabbi, you got to take your medication, because if you don't, the shaking is going to be uncontrollable, and it was. And he said, I'm not willing to do it, because he heard that if you take the medication, it's going to ultimately dull your senses and dull your mind. He says, so be it. I'm not going to do it. And unfortunately, it was very, very difficult. He had a very difficult illness, but with such tremendous courage. And the story goes is that, I believe it was Howard Schultz, now he's the vice president of Starbucks, him and a bunch of high-powered executives who happen to be Jewish, they came to Reb Nosson Tzvi's home, his very humble home in Yerushalayim. And when they got there, Reb Nosson Tzvi turned to everyone and said, gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. What is the lesson we can learn from the Holocaust? So one person said, never again. Another person said, Jewish defense. Another person said, don't ignore evil. Everyone said different answers that they had. And Nosson Tzvi says, I want to share with you an insight I believe is what the Holocaust taught us. And that is that when the Nazis would come in the darkest moments of the winter, freezing cold, and they would take a blanket and with cynical humor throw the blanket onto one of the bunk beds where it had maybe 5-6 people sleeping on one bunk bed that could maybe hold one person, and say, here, Jews, fight over it. And they wanted to see a melee of people just going crazy and fighting and acting like animals and rip the cover to shreds. So when those Jews got that blanket, they would take the blanket and push it over to the next person, who would push over to the next person, who would push over to the next person. Everyone was thinking about the other people, and the Nazis didn't know what was going on. He said, in such a dark place, you still retain your humanity, your dignity. He says that's the lesson of the Holocaust. When a person is in a dark area and they still maintain their dignity, they're able to understand, I'm passing on whatever it is that I have. I'm passing it on to the next generation. If a person understands that's what real heroism is, you understand you are a glorious link in the chain, and legacies don't die. It lives on forever. Now, people sometimes will say, oh, that's only specifically Jews. Jews are the ones that have that. Well, I'm going to share with you a story. This is a story I'm actually very grateful that it's in the Vaharavna book from Feldheim, and they produce many of these fantastic stories from Rabbi Zilberstein, and they quote the following story. It's on page 69 of Vaharavna number 3, where he writes, Professor Henrik Goldschmidt, also known as Janusz Korczak, he ran a Jewish orphanage in Warsaw before the Holocaust. And the story goes is that when the Nazis came rounding Jewish people, especially young children, they went to the professor and said, you could go, you don't need to stay with these kids, you're not a Jew, and also you could work in the camps. He said, I am with these young children. He says, why? They're orphans. He says, exactly, and I will not leave them. I'm staying with them. And people pleaded with the professor. They said, what are you doing? He says, I don't want these kids to die with fear on their face. If I have to die with them, let me die with them. What an unbelievable legacy that someone could have, that people can remember that. And you're going to say, your life is at risk. How could you do that? I don't know. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi what you should do. But one thing is clear, that when you have a mandate and you know what it is that you could do, remember you are part of that legacy. And Yaakov understood that his son Yosef, because he had that shine, because he wasn't succumbing to immorality, he knew he could count on him. He is going to be the next glorious link. And maybe Yaakov understood, maybe you, my son, are going to counter and say, but we don't have you, Dad. You're not here anymore. What are we going to do? He says, I will say to you, Al nosek b'reini b'Mitzrayim. Don't let me be buried in Mitzrayim. I shouldn't be buried. But you, Yosef, my son, you should be buried. You know why? You're that legacy. You were able to not succumb to all the temptations. And by the way, just as a good Jewish trivia, Yosef was the longest reigning Jewish monarch in the history of Jews. Most people think when you ask who was the longest reigning monarch, the longest king of the Jews, you would say Menashe, or you'd say someone else, Shlomo HaMelech, David. Different people will give different answers. But really, the real answer is Yosef HaTzadik, because he actually ruled from the age of 30 till his death in 110. For 80 years, he was the king. Can you imagine that? 80 years being a king over a superpower, the superpower. And he was the king over all of them. And Yosef was the one that he was going to be the legacy. Because when he was looking around saying, wait 1 second, who's going to run this place? His father said, it's going to be you. You are the one. And when a person recognizes that they have the capacity to be great, the sky's the limit. Why are you inhibiting yourself? Don't stop. You have the ability to be great. And if a person recognizes that and they tap into that, they're going to tap into an unbelievable secret. So I'd like to now pivot with that idea of legacies don't die. And I'd like to now swing into a vart, an idea. This is my own original one. Based on what the Zera Shimshon said, I believe this is now an unbelievable interpretation with the following. Yaakov Avinu gathers his children and tells them, I want to let you know, Achris Hayomim, the end of days. I'm going to tell you when Mashiach, when Messiah himself will come. I'm going to let you know when we're going to have real world peace. I'm going to let you know when it's going to be the time where Jewish people throughout the world are going to be at the pinnacle of serving Hashem, and all of humanity is going to be able to recognize that Hashem is one, God is one, and we're all together as one. And when is that going to be? By the way, Ruvain, you have this in this thing. Shimon and Levi, your brothers. And by the way, Yehuda, you're a king. Oh, and did I mention Yisachar as well? Oh, indeed. Everyone could have been like, Dad, you were about to tell us like the biggest piece of news. When's the Mashiach coming? When's the Messiah coming? Like, why didn't you tell us? You literally, you're at the cusp of telling. And you're going to tell me, well, he was about to tell them, but Hashem snatched it away. So then why would Hashem do that in the first place? Why was there some form of divine providence or divine spirituality that Yaakov literally saw it, so he's about to divulge of when it was, and suddenly it got taken away from him? How cruel is that? So it's two questions. What was Hashem doing by giving him that little taste, tantalizing and like hanging it in front of him? He's about to now divulge. And then when he's about to divulge it, suddenly, oh, by the way, let me tell you about this. What's going on over here? This is my own interpretation based on this idea. We just said a moment ago, you have to recognize you are the legacy, and therefore the legacy is never going to die because you're here. You're here right now. When a person recognizes that they're the legacy, oh, you can do so much. So watch this. The Mefarshim tell us, the commentators tell us, the reason why Yaakov had 12 sons is because each child represented 12 months of the year. Every child has something unique that another one doesn't have. And because every child has something unique that another one doesn't have, therefore, that's why each child was in the number 12. That's why Yaakov has the 12 tribes, because it represents basically the 12 months of the year. This is now stamped on humanity. This is what it's going to be. So now Yaakov says to himself, wait a second, how do I know this is going to be for a perpetual legacy? How do I know this is going to continue? He didn't know. But suddenly when he sees all 12 of his children surrounding him on his deathbed, suddenly Hashem brought his divine spirit on him, and he goes, oh my gosh, they're all together. This is it. When everyone is together in unison, and unity doesn't mean that you are exactly like me. It means that we all correspond to 12 months of the year, but it's 1 year. We are all playing for the same team, but at different positions. We all play different instruments, but it's to one orchestra, to one conductor. We all understand that we have unique talents that the other one doesn't have, but it complements one another. And Yaakov now sees all of his children sitting around him. Hashem's now giving him, hovering over him, this divine presence that this is what it will look like when Mashiach is here. When Mashiach will come, it's going to be at a time when we all can recognize that we're all special, we're all unique, we're all as one, we're all together. What a beautiful thing. Now that we're all together, Yaakov now says, I want to reveal to you about Mashiach. And suddenly gets taken away. They could have been like, whoa, Dad, what just happened over here? What about Mashiach? And the answer, I believe, is this legacy is you all could bring Mashiach. Every one of you. Focus on yourself. Ruvain, Reishis Aini, you are the first of my strength. Shimon Velevi, Achim, your brothers. Yehuda, Ati Yeducha Achecha, your brothers recognize you're the king. Every single one of you has something unique that the other brother doesn't have. Look at your unique latent talents that every single one of you has. And act on that. You have something different that no one else has. How beautiful is that? If everyone could focus on what they're good at and not look at how the other person is different than them, that's what's holding back Mashiach from coming. So Yaakov, I believe, Yaakov was not allowed to say when, but he's allowed to say how. And you know how Mashiach will come? When we can have everyone sitting at the table and we can point out the qualities that every single one of us has. And that's how the legacies don't die. That's the idea that Zerah Shimshon is saying. Now that I'm about to die, I'm about to pass on, how am I going to know that you're going to be able to maintain that? You're going to be able to maintain that when you look out for one another. And most importantly, you understand that you are unique to one another. And despite your differences, we're all a unique family and we're all together as one. And I'd just like to conclude with the following idea. Many people talk about this idea of you have different family members, that they do different things, and in this family we do that. Just imagine, if you would, if we were to take people now and pluck them away and take them 3,000 years back and put them in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. Do you think you would look anything at all like Moshe Rabbeinu? Most probably not. Do you think you would talk like Moshe Rabbeinu? Most probably not. Do you think you would act? No. Torah, in a way, kind of evolves. It's like an interesting thing. I tell this to people all the time. When people tell me, why do religious people dress a certain way? I say, I'll tell you the truth. I don't know. If my rabbis decided they wanted to dress up in a Native American Chief Wahoo Apache feather headdress or something, and they were wearing a bunch of necklaces with teeth, I probably want to wear that too, because that's who I affiliate myself with. And people that affiliate with another type of rabbi, that's what they affiliate to. You're showing affiliation to that link. But that's not at the detriment to someone else. You have to realize that everyone has a place at the table. Everyone has a place at Yaakov Avinu's bed. Everyone has a season. Everyone has a month. Everyone has something that's unique to them that no one else has. And if you recognize that, how beautiful the Jewish people would be. When you could look and see this one excels at that, and the other one excels at another thing. Each one has their thing that make beautiful, that Judaism is such a beautiful tapestry of such a beautiful, vivid colors and offsets and all these different things that make us so uniquely Jewish but so different at the same time. And how we're all one family. Like they say, you could choose your friends, you can't choose your family. Your family with their quirkiness and all their interesting things, their foibles and fails and whatever it may be, but ultimately their successes. When a Jew succeeds, be happy for them. It's my brother, my sister. Thank you, Hashem. I get to see one of your children succeeding. Do you think Hashem is happy when he hears that you're happy for them? Of course he is. And he'll want you to succeed as well. That's how legacies don't die. So my blessing to every single one of you is keep on the legacy. You are that beautiful chain in the link, that link of that beautiful chain that is going to signify us going all the way down from our great-great-great-great-grandparents all the way to us, and God willing, our children, our descendants, the people who come after us, when they see how we led lives of integrity, lives of beauty, and most importantly, lives of unity, God willing, legacies don't die because we're here and we're here to stay. Good Shabbos to everyone and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for listening.